Your patience during that technological interlude. Welcome to Knowledge Ecology International, who is our last party this afternoon. So please introduce yourselves and spell your last name. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is James Love. My last name is spelled L-O-V-E, and I'm accompanied today by Dr. Mano Ress. The first name spelled like the opera, and then last name R-E-S-S. Thank you.
Please begin.
Knowledge Ecology International is a nonprofit organization. We have an office in Geneva, Switzerland, and Washington, D.C. We submitted a statement. I'd like permission also to supplement the record. I understand that will be available later today. One of the things I'd like to supplement the record with is a testimony a written testimony prepared for. There's another proceeding. The International Trade Commission is having a proceeding by India, and I think it'd be useful to have a lot of information reflected in the record of this proceeding, because it's on many of the people have focused on India, and there was 9 hours of testimony on that. In terms of, I think that the first thing I want to talk about is that a lot of the impetus of putting India into the Special 301 has been about two actions they took explicitly on patents on cancer drugs. One was Gleevec and one was Nexivar, but then also they talked about doing compulsory licenses, or there's been issues about patents being granted on other cancer drugs. I want to just spend a little time briefly going over this exhibit I passed out about the price of cancer drugs. These are an extraordinary group. There was 29 cancer drugs approved by the U.S. FDA between 2011 and 2013 that were new chemical entities, new molecular entities. That's really historically a very unusual group of registrations. So we wanted to look at this, and I've done this really for some other work I'm doing as well. Now the average price for the 29, the unweighted average price is over $100,000, and the median price is $92,000. Those are really expensive drugs. I'd also mention that if you look at 20 of the 29 were eligible for an orphan drug exclusivity, and also a 50% tax credit on the clinical trials that was provided by the United States as a subsidy. And if you look at the last two columns about the number, these are the number of patients in trials in the press release when the product was approved by the FDA. Only 3 of the products on this list listed more than 1,000 patients in the clinical trials for efficacy. Joe Damasi's famous study of the cost of drug development used about 5,300 patients as an average. These things, the average was less than, it's an order of magnitude smaller. It was less than 500. It was 446, and the median was only 331. So I think one thing I'd like you to know is the prices are really high, and the company's investment was deeply subsidized by the U.S. government, and the number of patients in trials was tiny. The other thing I want to mention is that 16 of the 29 products are being marketed by companies that are not American. 13 are by American. In fact, in the last 2 years, the share of non-American products has gone up. If you look at the two big cases in India that they're talking about, Gleevec and Bayer, those are cases where the drugs were developed with public support in the United States. Gleevec and received various subsidies, including the orphan drug subsidy in the case of Nexivar, by U.S. firms or nonprofit institutions, but then now they're owned by, in one case, a German, in one case, a Swiss firm. So if you can't really just sort of assume that that everything about pharmaceuticals is necessarily about the U.S. Now, in my testimony that I submitted on regulations.gov, I spent a fair amount of time going over a related issue, which is the global share of patents that are being issued worldwide and how the U.S. share has changed over time. I just want to comment. Yeah, if you look at the PCT patents, the patents filed in the Patent Cooperation Treaty, the WIPO, which are the most important ones, they tend to be the ones that are filed everywhere. In 1982, the United States was responsible for 45% of all the patents filed in the PCT, WIPO. By 2001, that was below 40%. By 2009, it was below 30%. In 2012, it was 26.4%. From 1997 to 2012, the U.S. share declined every single year. So I would like people to look basically at the fact that not all the drugs are affordable even in the United States, and not all the products are owned by Americans, and not all the patents in the world are American patents these days. I want to talk briefly then in terms of, people mentioned the Nexvar case. I'll just add to what the people, I was a witness in the Nexvar case on the issue of whether it met the standard, and I was out there during the appeal. It was priced at 42 times the average income in India. If you did that for Nexvar in the United States, the price would be $183,000 per month. Now, if that was the price in the United States, you could understand why, or 2.2 million a year, you can understand why that wouldn't be acceptable. That's really what they were looking at in terms of India. The CEO of Bayer, during this controversy, asked by the FT about it, didn't even mention the local working condition, like all these trade associations prefer to refer to. He talked about the pricing issue. We referred to the compulsory license as theft, but then he said we didn't develop this drug for the Indian market anyhow. It was for Western patients who can afford it. So what you're trying to decide is whether people that don't live in the markets they think are really the right markets for them, whether they should live or die. And if you take steps to deny access to cancer drugs around the world, you're going to kill people, because it's a real problem. There was a woman at the hearing ITC named Dina. She lives in Florida. She came up to attend the hearing. She talked to a number of journalists. Her father earns $300 per month in Egypt. Nexvar is priced at $900 a week in Egypt. He's gone through his entire life savings. Now he's contemplating, he's been out of the drug since last Friday. Now he's contemplating whether he should, or he's been out of the drug for a week now, he's contemplating whether he should sell his family-owned business in order to pay for 9 months more of the drug, of which they'll have nothing actually. I've been involved in with possibly infringement activity. If anyone here from Customs or the copyright or the patent police, they might arrest me afterwards. But I've been trying to basically find a way to get the $27 a week version of Nexvar, a cancer drug from India, where the compulsory license only applies to sale within the territory of India and does not permit the export, to Egypt, where the product's under patent. That requires either infringing the patent both in India and in Egypt on a $45,000 drug in terms of the Egyptian price, or getting compulsory licenses in both countries, which is quite a challenge, or smuggling it, like somebody recommended her that she hollow out books and smuggle the drug across border using someone kind of like a mule or something like that. That's the situation that pharma and bio and NAM and all these people want you to enforce. They want you to basically just make it so those people can't get access to the drugs. Now, I'm going to finish very briefly with 2 points. One is the U.S. has a lot of compulsory licenses that have been issued. The standards compliant patents decision by the USPTO and the Justice Department effectively are the biggest compulsory license in the world right now. It affects about 50,000 standards. Under the eBay, there's been compulsory licenses granted right and left for things like contact eye lenses, heart disease valves, automatic transmissions, Windows software, direct TVs, set-top box, all kinds of things. 28 U.S.C. 1498 is a fairly broad authority. I'll provide, if you permit me, a series of cases under that has been used recently. There's one case that's, I think, quite new, and it's relevant to this discussion about local working. It's 42 U.S.C. 17231, subparagraph H, subparagraph 7. It's part of the U.S. Energy Storage Competitiveness Act. It's a local working requirement for patents that enter into this program of subsidies that the U.S. government runs to develop battery technology to make the U.S. competitive battery. And basically, if you start rattling the cage on local working conditions, you have the Bayh-Dole Act provisions, which are local working provisions, but you also have the U.S. Energy Storage Competitive Act, and you should take a look at that. Finally, the Affordable Care Act, of course, has a compulsory license provision on undisclosed patents of biologic drugs, and it's a mandatory, non-discretionary, compulsory license. Final thing mentioned is a Hep C drug sold by Gilead. It's priced at $1,000 a pill. It's a very good drug. It's a cure for hepatitis C. It's $84,000 for a course of treatment in the United States of America. There are 3.2 million persons in the United States that are Hep C positive. The way you do the math on this, you multiply 3.2 million people times $84,000, and you get a number of $269 billion. That is the price that Gilead has offered to treat everyone that needs treatment, that could be cured of this disease. It's an infectious disease. If you don't treat them, they're going to infect more people, and it won't be 3.2 million next year. It'll be a bigger number. It's not like the government's going to pay $269 billion for this hepatitis drug. You're just basically not going to treat very many of the people that have hepatitis C. You're only going to treat the acute patients that are, in acute conditions, which is a much smaller number. So you have an opportunity to pretty much wipe out Hep C, but you're not going to take advantage of it because the crazy way the pricing system works. And there's 150 million Hep C patients outside of the United States. I think that what you have to sort of rethink the whole drug thing and pursue a different trade agenda that focuses on R&D and different models of pricing things, and pursues this delinkage strategy so that countries like Germany and Canada and India, Brazil, and everybody pays their fair share, but the medicines are available almost for free on the margin, but countries contribute both private sector incentives like innovation inducement prizes and grants and things like that, so that there's a robust financing involving billions of dollars to stimulate new R&D, but that you don't have like $100,000, $85,000 on the margin prices, and a lot of people not being treated in the United States, elsewhere, Greece, etc., around the world because of this crazy system that we're currently engaged in. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Time is up, so we won't ask any questions today, but we did have a few questions, and so we'll go through those and forward them to you so that you can respond to them during the next 2 weeks. You did refer to a couple of different outside sources. If you'd like to submit those for consideration, we'd be happy to have those as well. Thank you for joining us again this year. I really appreciate your input. So at this point, I think I will wrap up with some post-hearing comments, mostly in the logistical vein. As I've mentioned several times today, the special 301 docket at regulations.gov, that's USTR-2013-0040, will be reopened this afternoon and will remain open through 5 o'clock on March 7th, Friday, March 7th. Anyone who testified today who is going to submit additional information, responses to the questions that we'll be providing, etc., welcome to use that to please put all of their materials in the public record. I would like to strongly encourage anyone who will be doing that to do that as soon as possible, not to wait until March 7th, so that we can have an opportunity to review the additional materials and follow up with questions. Submissions should contain the phrase 2014 Special 301 Review in the type comment field, and please label your comments post-hearing comments. As I mentioned also, there will be a transcript and videotape of today's proceedings available within 2 weeks. That will be available free of charge through USTR.gov. And again, mentioned several times today, upon the conclusion of this year's review, the committee will reconvene to conduct a review of the review. We anticipate public notice and comment period around that exercise, and welcome anyone who participated today or joined us today, and as well as any interested stakeholders to provide us with their views during that process. I would like to thank everyone today for all of the parties that testified, all of you for joining us here in the audience, my co-panelists from the committee, and as well as USTR personnel and others who made today possible. And with that, I would like to adjourn the 2014 Special 301 hearing. Thank you.